Imagine this. Amidst the remote mountains of China, a colossal quarry lies silent, where ancient workers once carved the largest stone blocks in human history, preparing for a grand project that, to this day, no one knows why they abandoned midway. Deep underground, an entire city with corridors and great halls connected like a labyrinth, large enough to shelter tens of thousands of people, has remained hidden in darkness for thousands of years. And elsewhere, giant bronze masks with intricate patterns, exaggerated eyes, and alien expressions seem to reveal a civilization that belongs to no place we've ever known. Across this planet, there are archaeological discoveries that not only astonish us, but also challenge everything humanity understands. Some structures are so massive, crafted with a precision that seems impossible. Others are so strange, surpassing all technical limits of the civilizations recorded in history. And the most incredible thing is, they are entirely real. Not myths, not rumors embellished over time. These are sites that can be measured, artifacts that can be held, studied by archaeologists, documented, and debated for decades. Yet, to this day, their explanation remains elusive. In this video, Mystery will guide you to explore 8 such enigmas, from colossal ancient stones to bizarrely shaped figurines, from stone circles visible only from above, to ancient cemeteries now submerged deep beneath the water. We will delve into the story behind each discovery, who built them, how, and why they exist. Some places will make you wonder, how could they possibly have done that? Others will make you imagine the lives of the people who created them, working with tools and knowledge that, by all conventional logic, should not have been sufficient to create such wonders. So, whether you are captivated by history, by ancient engineering, or by unsolved mysteries, be prepared. Because right now, we will embark on a journey to explore 8 of the greatest archaeological discoveries, mysteries that continue to baffle the world to this day. In the quiet outskirts of Nanjing, Jiangsu province, there is a place where stone and time seem to have made a pact to keep an unfinished secret. This is the Yangshan Quarry. From ancient times, this site was a source of rare green limestone for imperial projects. But in the early 15th century, it became the focal point of one of the most audacious projects in Chinese history. In the early 15th century, during the reign of the Yongle Emperor, the third ruler of the Ming dynasty, who also built the Forbidden City and dispatched Zheng He on voyages to Africa, an order was given to erect an eternal stele in his honor. He did not want an ordinary monument. He desired a colossal memorial, a mountain of stone, to inscribe the eternal power of the Ming imperial authority. This quarry became the center of a project so daring, it seemed to challenge the very limits of human capability. The Yangshan Quarry was chosen for the task. Imperial engineers began cutting directly into the mountainside, carving monolithic stone blocks whose dimensions far surpassed anything ever attempted in Chinese architecture. And perhaps the entire ancient world. 3 main blocks remain there to this day. The largest block, still attached to the bedrock, is approximately 73 meters long, 20 meters high, and 8 meters thick, with an estimated mass of 16,250 tons. It weighs more than a modern Type 052D destroyer of the Chinese Navy, or roughly twice the weight of the Statue of Liberty. Two other slightly smaller blocks lie a few dozen meters away, each weighing between 5,000 and 8,000 tons, in various stages of carving. According to the plan, these 3 blocks were to be assembled into an imperial stele over 70 meters high, to be placed at the Ming Xiaoling Mausoleum, a magnificent tomb of the Yongle Emperor located near the foot of the Purple Mountain. The stele was to be the ultimate symbol of power, inscribed with the emperor's edicts and merits, standing tall against the sky, reflecting sunlight onto the distant mountain slopes. But instead of being completed, the project was abruptly halted. The unfinished chisel marks and the raw grooves on the stone surfaces show that the work stopped right in the middle, as if an order was given in the night, and thousands of stonemasons vanished the next morning. Archaeologists suggest the reason lies in its own excessive grandeur. With a mass that exceeded the capacity of manual transport or wooden sledges, moving these blocks over the rugged, hilly terrain for 15 kilometers to the Ming Xiaoling Mausoleum was nearly impossible. Even with the largest modern crawler crane, the Liebherr LR 13,000, which has a maximum lifting capacity of about 3,000 tons, moving a block 5 times that weight would be out of reach. And yet, the Ming engineers began the work. It is believed they relied on traditional techniques, using dry bamboo wedges, which were then soaked with water to expand and split the rock, and then employing wooden rollers and ropes greased with animal fat for transport. Some scholars speculate there may have been a plan to build a massive earthen and wooden slide ramp extending down to the plains, a colossal engineering feat for which no evidence has been found. The truth is, there is no archaeological evidence that they ever attempted to move the first block. Perhaps the miscalculations were only discovered when the first block was nearly finished. At that point, the court may have been forced to terminate the project, redirecting resources to other endeavors like the Forbidden City, which was completed in 1420, or military constructions along the Great Wall. Another theory suggests that the death of the Yongle Emperor in 1424 caused his subsidiary projects to be abandoned. The subsequent reign under the Hongxi Emperor favored austerity and was unwilling to continue expending thousands of laborers and resources on an unfeasible project. Whatever the reason, the work stopped suddenly, leaving one of the most dramatic what-ifs in architectural history. Even now, the Yangshan Quarry raises more questions than it answers. The sheer size of the blocks challenges our understanding of what was thought possible during the Ming Dynasty. Even with modern technology, moving them intact would be a monumental and incredibly complex task. Was the project simply a case of ambition outstripping reality? Or did the builders have a specific, now lost, method for transporting such colossal stones? If so, why does no record of it survive? Chinese archaeologists currently view Yangshan as physical evidence of the limits of ancient construction engineering. But some independent scholars argue that the fact the project was even started suggests the ancients must have had some method for moving megaliths, a method that may now be lost to time. This question places Yangshan in the same category as the great mysteries of the world, like Baalbek in Lebanon, Tiahuanaco in Bolivia, or the Great Pyramid of Giza, where ancient peoples seemingly accomplished what modern logic cannot fully explain. Standing before these giant blocks, the first feeling is not just admiration, but a deep sense of wonder. Did people of that era truly achieve a level of organization and technology that we have yet to fully comprehend? Or is it simply a symbol of human ambition and its limits? After more than 600 years, the megaliths at Yangshan remain there, heavy and silent, waiting for someone to find the answer. And perhaps the most compelling thing about them is this final question. If we were to try to complete that project today, could we do it? If Yangshan tells the story of an unfinished work, then Xiangkhoang is evidence of the opposite, a mystery that was completed, yet no one understands. Here, thousands of giant stone jars are scattered across the plains, each weighing up to several tons, carved from monolithic stone and arranged in an order that only the ancients understood. Amidst the lush green valleys and rolling grassy hills, where the wind carries the echoes of lost ages, thousands of giant stone jars lie scattered as if a silent army is guarding a secret buried for millennia. There are no city walls, no temples, only stone and silence. The site is simply called the Plain of Jars. But that name only hints at the smallest part of what is hidden here. Spanning an area of over 400 square kilometers, archaeologists have recorded more than 90 different sites, each containing from a few dozen to several hundred jars. They were carved from heavy stones like sandstone, granite, and conglomerate, some standing up to 3 meters tall and weighing over 13 tons, and all were hewn from a single block of stone. In many places, stone lids, carved with human and animal figures, have also been found, believed to have once covered the jars. Every chisel mark, every carving, remains intact, as if the hands of the ancient craftsmen had just left yesterday. According to modern research, these jars date back about 2,500 years to the early Iron Age. But their origin and purpose are still shrouded in the mists of the past. Local legend says that a giant king named Kun Chung ordered the jars to be made to hold rice wine to celebrate a victory in a great battle. But what if that is just a story created to hide something deeper, something darker? Excavations, since the 1930s, have revealed a chilling truth. Around the jars, human bones, teeth, pottery, beads, and charcoal have been found. From this, archaeologists have hypothesized that this was once a ritualistic burial ground, where the ancients performed a two-stage funeral rite, placing the bodies in the jars until only the bones remained, and then performing a secondary burial in nearby graves. It is a ritual that evokes the belief that death is not an end, but a doorway to another realm. However, the mystery does not stop there. How could a society without advanced metal tools have transported and carved these colossal stone blocks from quarries more than 10 kilometers away, across rugged mountain terrain, and then set them up neatly on the plains? The jars have a near perfect balance, symmetry, and flat surfaces. A level of precision that makes researchers wonder, was there a lost technology or a buried knowledge that once existed here? And the biggest question, who were they? There is no writing, no symbols, no traces of religion or social organization. The culture that created these jars seems to have vanished from history without leaving any message. Only an absolute silence in the wilderness. But even as modern humans try to get closer to the truth, another tragedy has befallen this land. During the 1960s and 70s, Xiangkhoang became one of the most heavily bombed regions of the 20th century, during the secret war associated with the Vietnam War. Over 270 million cluster bombs were dropped here. And to this day, millions of unexploded ordnance still lie hidden beneath the ground. About 70% of the archaeological sites remain unexcavated, because every step here can be a gamble with life and death. If you too are amazed by the mystery and the tragedies of this land, please press the like button to support Mystery's journey of discovery. That also means there are countless undiscovered jars, countless unopened graves, and possibly an entirely unknown layer of history waiting to be deciphered. Amidst the motionless rows of jars, one feels as if time is imprisoned in stone. Each jar is not just an artifact, but a question in stone, etched into the memory of this planet. They challenge human intellect, inviting us to listen to the whispers of the past, where there may have existed a civilization erased from the memory of mankind. Perhaps the Plain of Jars is not just an archaeological site, but a gateway, leading us closer to humanity's oldest question. What do we truly know about those who came before us? Every time one mystery settles, another rises. After the stone fields of Xiangkhoang, it is Sichuan's turn to whisper of a forgotten civilization. No records, no legends, only bronze faces. Strange, alien, and seemingly not of human origin. But if the Plain of Jars tells a story of death, this mystery tells a story of life, and of a civilization that seems not to belong to its own time. The story begins not with a scientific excavation, but on a simple afternoon in 1929, when a farmer digging a ditch unexpectedly found jade artifacts buried deep in the soil. At the time, the discovery was noted but not fully investigated, and the site was largely forgotten for decades. It was not until the 1980s that large-scale excavations began, revealing two massive sacrificial pits containing thousands of artifacts. Inside were over 10,000 objects. These objects immediately captured the attention of archaeologists, not just for their quantity, but for their style. They looked nothing like the artifacts of any known Chinese culture. Bronze masks with exaggerated features, towering human statues, gold jewelry, jade blades, and strange animal figures emerged from the earth. Each item was more impressive than the last. The discovery revealed the existence of a previously unknown, advanced Bronze Age civilization, later identified as the Sanxingdui civilization. The artifacts of Sanxingdui are unlike anything else in Chinese archaeology. Prominent among them are massive bronze masks, some with faces over 1 meter wide. Many have wide, staring eyes that protrude outward in a tubular or slit-like fashion, as if designed to observe the world beyond. Others have sharply defined noses, large ears, and stylized mouths, all rendered in bold, geometric shapes. Equally impressive are the bronze statues, including one that stands over 2 meters tall and is believed to have once held a now missing ivory tusk. Gold work from the site includes delicate gold leaf masks and decorative plaques, while jade artifacts range from ritual blades to carved animal motifs. One particularly famous piece is a bronze tree sculpture, standing nearly 4 meters tall, with curved branches and delicate leaves. Astonishing in both its scale and craftsmanship, scientists still cannot explain why or how the ancient craftsmen could forge such massive bronze objects using the technology of 3,000 years ago, when much of the world was still emerging from the Stone Age. The bronze casting technique here surpasses conventional understanding. Each mold was cast individually and assembled with a precision of less than 1 millimeter, with no traces of welding or manual joining. Chemical analysis shows an alloy containing tin, lead, and antimony, a formula not found at any other site from the same period. One wonders, how could they have achieved such temperature control without modern furnaces? Something even stranger. On the surface of some bronze artifacts are unusual burn marks and oxidation layers, seemingly heated to extremely high temperatures far beyond the capability of ordinary fire. Some researchers speculate that a powerful energy source, perhaps from a mineral reaction or mystical ritual, was used in the crafting process. What is remarkable is how different this style is from that of the contemporary Shang dynasty in central China. While Shang bronzes are typically compact, symmetrical, and feature the Taoti mask, the works of Sanxingdui are large, scale, abstract, and almost surreal. The two cultures clearly developed along very different artistic and symbolic paths. Most researchers believe that Sanxingdui was part of the ancient Shu kingdom, which thrived in the Sichuan basin some 3,000 years ago. The region was geographically isolated from the Yellow River civilizations by mountains and rivers, which may explain its distinctive cultural development. Despite its high level of sophistication, Sanxingdui left behind no written language, at least none that we have discovered. Much of what we know comes from the artifacts themselves and the layout of the site. The evidence suggests a complex society with skilled artisans, religious or ceremonial leaders, and extensive trade connections. Materials like ivory, seashells, and certain types of stone found at Sanxingdui indicate exchange with distant regions. At some point, the city and its culture appear to have been abandoned. The reasons are still unclear. Environmental change, resource depletion, flooding, or conflict are all possibilities. Whatever the cause, Sanxingdui disappeared from history, leaving only its extraordinary artifacts as evidence of its existence. The uniqueness of Sanxingdui's art is its greatest puzzle. The large, protruding eyes on many of the masks and statues are unlike any other motif in ancient Chinese art. Are they depictions of gods, ancestors, or mythological creatures? Some scholars suggest they represent a focus on vision as a spiritual concept, while others think they are tied to local legends of divine kings. What makes it even stranger is the lack of direct connection to other contemporary cultures. The Shang dynasty, which was at its peak during Sanxingdui's development, shared certain technologies, but not the artistic or symbolic style. This has led some to wonder if Sanxingdui developed in near total isolation, or if it preserved influences from an even older, forgotten culture. There is also the question of why so many valuable objects were buried in sacrificial pits. Were they offerings to the gods, a symbolic marking of the city's end? Or was the burial part of a planned ritual tied to the culture's disappearance? Among the artifacts found were seashells from the South China Sea, ivory from Southeast Asia, and marble from the Himalayan region, proving that the Sanxingdui people traded over distances of thousands of kilometers, a complex trade network far beyond the capabilities of their era. And then, one day they vanished. No city remains, no residential traces, no burials, no religious structures are left. Only the cold bronze faces staring at us across 3 millennia, as if waiting for modern humans to understand something. Today, despite advanced technology, archaeologists still cannot answer a host of questions. Who created them? Where did they come from? And why did they choose to erase themselves from history? Those artifacts, cold, silent, yet chillingly alive, remain there as a challenge to time. And perhaps the most frightening thing is not that we do not understand, but the feeling that we once knew, but have long since forgotten. Mystery is still with you on the search for answers, because sometimes, amidst the fragments of bronze, gold, and jade, lies not only the heritage of a people, but the remaining traces of human memory, of a civilization that history has intentionally concealed. From the bronze masks of Sanxingdui, where giant metal faces seem to look through time, our journey with mystery leaves Sichuan, crossing thousands of miles to the arid desert between Jordan and Syria. There, amidst an ocean of sand and rock, exists another mystery, not as brilliant as gold or jade, but etched directly into the earth, fully visible only from the sky. The big circles were first documented in the 1920s, when pilots of the British Royal Air Force flying over the desert looked down and saw enormous circular shapes, so perfect they seemed impossible to be natural formations. On the ground, they are just low stone walls, blending into the rugged terrain. But from above, a strange geometric order becomes strikingly clear. Nearly perfect circles, lying motionless in a land that has been weathered by wind and time for thousands of years. On the ground, however, they are much easier to miss. Made of low stone walls that blend into the landscape, they could easily be mistaken for natural rock formations. Early surveys had noted some of these circles, but with limited resources and other priorities, they received only passing attention for decades. It was not until modern satellite imagery became common in the 21st century that interest surged again. Digital tools allowed researchers to identify dozens of circles with remarkable precision, revealing how consistent their size was across different locations. Today, we know of at least a dozen large examples in Jordan and several in Syria. And yet, even with high-resolution imagery, the circles remain enigmatic. No inscriptions, clear cultural markers, or associated structures have been found that could definitively explain their origin or function. The big circles vary slightly in size, but on average they are about 400 meters in diameter, which is nearly the length of 4 football fields laid end to end. Their walls are built of local stone, stacked without mortar, and stand only about a meter high. The thickness of the walls varies, but they are generally too low to have served as effective enclosures for people or animals. Perhaps their most striking feature is their precision. Many are nearly perfect circles, with deviations from a true circle measured in just centimeters. Despite their immense size, this level of accuracy would be a challenge even with modern surveying tools, let alone whatever methods were available to their builders. Intriguingly, none of the circles have obvious entrances or gates. If they once existed, they may have collapsed or been obscured over time. Their locations are also peculiar. Most are found in flat, open areas, with no clear relationship to rivers, trade routes, or known settlements. Dating the circles is difficult because they lack organic material for radiocarbon analysis. Some archaeologists have suggested they could be at least 2,000 years old, but others believe they may date back much further, possibly into prehistoric times. The deserts of Jordan and Syria are rich in ancient structures, from Roman roads and forts to prehistoric cairns and stone alignments. The land has been home to nomadic herders, settled farmers, and trading communities for thousands of years, each group leaving its mark on the landscape. Other large-scale stone structures in the region, often called desert kites, are known to have been used for hunting or herding animals. But the big circles do not fit this pattern. They are too open, too low, and lack the characteristic funnel-shaped entrances of the kites. Some archaeologists have noted that smaller stone circles and geoglyphs in the Middle East sometimes mark burial sites or ritual areas. But there is nothing inside the big circles to suggest such a purpose. The absence of artifacts, such as tools, pottery, or bones, makes it difficult to link them to any specific culture or period. One of the simplest theories is that the big circles were boundary markers, immense outlines indicating tribal territories, sacred spaces, or seasonal grazing rights. Large, visible shapes on the landscape could have served as a visual signal to neighboring groups. Another possibility is that they had a ritual or ceremonial function. An enclosed space 400 meters across could have hosted seasonal gatherings, processions, or open-air rituals. The lack of permanent structures inside would be consistent with the idea of temporary events, where people gathered only at certain times of the year. A few researchers have floated the idea that the big circles were never intended to be practical enclosures, but were large-scale artistic or symbolic expressions, which are ancient geoglyphs similar to the Nazca lines in Peru. From the surrounding hills, the circles would have been visible in their entirety. And if their builders believed in gods or spirits watching from above, the designs might have been intended for a non-human audience. The absence of entrances is one of the most puzzling aspects. It could suggest that access was controlled, or that they were never meant to be entered by people or animals at all. The greatest mystery of the big circles lies in their combination of size, precision, and lack of obvious function. Building a perfect circle hundreds of meters across requires careful planning and significant labor, even with simple stone walls. For a society to invest that effort, there had to be a reason, and yet no clear purpose has been found. Likewise, their consistency is intriguing. Whether in Jordan or Syria, the circles share a similar size and construction method, suggesting a common cultural origin or a widespread tradition. But without datable material or inscriptions, it is impossible to say if they were built at the same time or over many centuries. Modern technology has made it easier to find and study the circles, but it has not yet solved the puzzle. In many ways, the more we look at them, the more questions arise. Were they giant landmarks for travelers, stages for lost rituals, or signs of a shared ancient practice whose meaning has faded beyond recognition? For now, they remain silent outlines in the desert, their stones weathered by centuries of wind and sun. We can map and measure them, but until new evidence comes to light, the purpose of the big circles will remain as open as the landscape they occupy. The ancients told that some structures were not built on land, but were hidden underwater, where light can barely reach. And in the Sea of Galilee, that placid surface conceals such a mystery, a colossal stone mound lying deep in the darkness, where time and silt have buried its story for millennia. Beneath those seemingly peaceful waters, sonar equipment has recorded something no one expected. A massive structure, nearly as tall as a 3-story building, hidden in the cold darkness of the lakebed. It is a monument of basalt, arranged with a deliberation and sophistication that surpasses the capabilities of ancient tools. This discovery occurred in 2003, when an Israeli sonar survey team was scanning the bottom of Lake Kinneret, the ancient name for the Sea of Galilee. The data appeared on the screen as a perfect man-made hill, a giant cone 9 to 10 meters high and nearly 70 meters in diameter, composed entirely of black basalt, the characteristic rock of the ancient Galilee region. At first, it was thought to be a natural phenomenon, until the first divers reached the lakebed and realized the stones were not randomly placed. They were stacked intentionally in a precise geometric form, like a submerged Bronze Age pyramid. When divers were sent down to investigate, they found a carefully constructed monument made entirely of large basalt boulders. The structure was clearly intentional, with the rocks arranged in a way that could not have occurred naturally. The discovery was remarkable not only for its scale, but also for its location, completely submerged in a place where no similar structures are known. Its presence at the bottom of the lake immediately raised questions. Who built it? What purpose did it serve? And perhaps most intriguingly, was it always underwater? The monument is a massive cairn, a mound of stone made from local basalt boulders, many weighing hundreds of kilograms. These rocks were stacked to create a cone that is about 10 meters high and nearly 70 meters in diameter at its base. Researchers estimate the mound contains some 230,000 cubic feet of stone, with a total weight of approximately 60,000 tons. To put that in perspective, it is heavier than many modern naval vessels. The stones appear to have been laid without mortar, relying only on their weight and careful arrangement to keep the structure stable. The mound is located in a relatively deep part of the lake, and although visibility is often poor, divers have noted that its slopes are remarkably straight and even, suggesting deliberate shaping. The arrangement is similar to large stone burial mounds or ritual cairns found on land in various ancient cultures, though no structure of this size had ever been recorded underwater in the region. Dating the mound is difficult, as water and sediment have covered it for centuries. However, researchers believe it could date to the Bronze Age, some 4,000 years ago, based on comparisons with similar stone structures on land. If this date is correct, the monument may predate the lake's current shoreline. In antiquity, the water level may have been lower, meaning the mound was originally built on dry land or in a marshy area near the shore. Rising water levels over the centuries could have gradually submerged it. As for its purpose, several theories exist. Some researchers suggest it was a burial mound, similar to the stone cairns found in Europe and the Middle East. Others propose it was a ceremonial platform where people connected with the gods who ruled the water and the sky. Another possibility is that it served as a landmark or a harbor marker, guiding boats along the lake's shore. Yet, there are no artifacts, no inscriptions, no human bones, or ritualistic traces. Only cold stones stacked upon each other, like a message in stone left by the ancients for posterity. But its language has been lost. But the effort it would have taken to build such a monument suggests it was of great importance to the people who created it. Moving and placing 60,000 tons of basalt without modern machinery would have required enormous organization and manpower. The builders would have needed to quarry the stone, transport it to the site, and stack it precisely to achieve the cairn's sloped, conical shape. If it was built on land, sledges, rollers, or simple rafts might have been used to move the rocks from nearby sources. The lack of mortar means the structure's stability depended entirely on the careful placement of the stones, which would have required both skill and experience. The scale of the mound implies a coordinated community effort, possibly lasting for years. It also suggests that the builders had a reason to invest so much effort in a project that did not directly provide shelter or food. Whatever its purpose, it must have held significant symbolic or practical value to justify the work. The biggest question is whether the mound was built underwater or on land. If water levels were lower in the past, the monument might have stood on a shore or a hill, only to be submerged later by natural changes in the lake's depth. If it was built underwater, that would imply an even greater level of skill and determination for a Bronze Age society. Likewise, its cultural context is a mystery. No other similar underwater monuments are known in the Sea of Galilee, and with no artifacts or remains, linking it to a specific group is impossible. For now, until more evidence is found, whether through excavation or new technology, the stone mound will remain one of the most fascinating underwater discoveries in the region. Posing the question, did its builders see the lake as it is today, or was the world around it entirely different? Beneath the deep blue waters of the Sea of Galilee, ancient stones lie dormant as if guarding a story yet untold. But as night falls, our journey turns south, where the desert winds carry the breath of fallen civilizations. Crossing arid lands and vast savannas, we arrive in a realm where stone and legend are one. Amidst the solemn hills of Zimbabwe, a stone city rises, not from the hands of gods, but from the will and ingenuity of a people who have vanished from history. In the sunset falling on its soaring curved walls, Great Zimbabwe appears as the living soul of an empire consumed by time, still whispering tales of power, faith, and lost splendor. The local Shona people have long regarded this place as the land of their ancestors. But to the outside world, Great Zimbabwe was once an unbelievable mystery. When the first European explorers arrived in the late 19th century, they were astonished by the massive stone walls, winding through valleys and hillsides, standing amidst the wild landscape. Not a drop of mortar, not a single inscription, no trace indicating who had built them. And it was this silence that paved the way for centuries of speculation, with some claiming it was the city of the Phoenicians, of lost biblical tribes, or even the work of extraterrestrials. However, in 1929, archaeologist Gertrude Caton Thompson put these misconceptions to rest. After careful excavations, she firmly asserted, Great Zimbabwe was the work of African people, specifically the ancestors of the Shona, who quarried granite from the land itself to build a city by hand, without blueprints or mortar, yet achieving an extraordinary level of technical and aesthetic mastery. Great Zimbabwe is located in southeastern Zimbabwe, in a landscape of granite hills and open valleys. The stone was readily available. Huge granite outcrops naturally exfoliated into slabs as they weathered. That material became the raw supply for one of Africa's great architectural achievements. Within this vast city, spread across hills and valleys, is the Great Enclosure, the largest single ancient structure south of the Sahara Desert. The Great Enclosure is an elliptical dry, stone construction, enclosing a space roughly 250 meters in circumference. Its outer wall stands over 11 meters high at its tallest point, and at its base, it can be more than 5 meters thick. No mortar binds the stones. Stability comes from precision. Neatly dressed courses of granite were laid with a slight inward batter, so the wall leans gently into its own center of gravity. Inside the great enclosure, a second parallel wall curves around to create a narrow, winding passage. Moving through it, you are led along blind corners, limiting what you can see ahead. A deliberate design, as if to guide processions or control who could access the inner spaces. The construction was not just functional. Sections of the wall display decorative courses, including chevron and herringbone patterns, showing an eye for design as well as structure. The most iconic feature inside is the conical tower, a solid, tapering stone structure about 9 meters high and roughly 5 meters in diameter at its base. It has no doorway or inner chamber. Its meaning is debated, but its presence is imposing. Around the tower and along the enclosure's interior are the platforms, terraces, and stone foundations of the circular huts that once stood here, likely built of clay and daub on pole frames. Together, they suggest a bustling, organized space, one that was ceremonial, political, residential, or a combination of all three. A close look at the walling emphasizes the technical mastery. The builders quarried the slabs from nearby outcrops, split them, possibly using heating and cooling or iron tools, and dressed the faces so they would fit tightly in courses. Even now, after centuries of weathering and plant growth, much of the wall stands firm, an unmistakable sign of careful engineering and long experience. Great Zimbabwe flourished from the 11th to the 15th centuries, the center of a kingdom that controlled inland trade routes, connecting gold mines and cattle, rich plateaus to the Indian Ocean coast. From ports like Sofala, goods were shipped up the Swahili coast and beyond, meeting traders from Arabia, India, and China. At the heart of the city was the Great Enclosure, the largest ancient stone structure south of the Sahara Desert. From a distance, its massive curved walls look like petrified waves rolling through the valley. The outer wall is up to 11 meters high and 5 meters thick, enclosing a space with a circumference of over 250 meters. With no binding agent, granite blocks weighing hundreds of kilograms were stacked with absolute precision, leaning slightly inward as if to balance themselves by their own gravity. An engineering feat that still amazes modern engineers. Inside, a parallel wall forms a narrow, winding passage, forcing entrance to move slowly, guided through blind corners. Was this a ceremonial corridor, where only the chosen were allowed to pass, step by step, toward the sacred center? And at the heart of the enclosure, the conical tower stands as a symbol of power and mystery. At 9 meters high, with no door and no empty space inside, it seems it was not made to be used, but to be. Some scholars suggest it symbolizes a granary, representing abundance and the king's role as the nourisher of his people. Others believe it was a sacred offering, a pillar connecting heaven and earth in ancient rituals. No one knows for sure. And perhaps it is the silence of the stone that makes it all the more sacred. Excavations have found imported goods that show those links. Chinese celadon ware, Persian glazed pottery, glass beads from Indian Ocean trade routes, and Arabic coins. Alongside them were local products, iron tools, copper and gold jewelry, and the famous soapstone carved birds. Those soapstone statues, probably dynastic emblems or symbols, were so important to the site's identity that a stylized version of them appears on the Zimbabwean national flag today. The country's name very likely comes from a Shona phrase, Zimba za Mabwe. Population estimates for the city vary, but at its peak, thousands of people lived among the hilltop complexes and valley enclosures. Elite areas are identified by the stone architecture. Most residents lived in clay houses. Metallurgy was practiced nearby. Iron smelting and gold working have left behind slag and crucibles, while cattle, a key measure of wealth and status, grazed in the surrounding lands. By the mid-15th century, Great Zimbabwe's influence had waned. The proposed causes include overgrazing around the capital, a shift in trade routes toward rival centers, political realignment toward the Mutapai state to the north, or simply a strain on resources in the local environment. The stone walls remained as the population moved on. So what exactly was the great enclosure for? Three main ideas predominate. First, a royal residence. The high walls, controlled passages, an iconic conical tower point to a space reserved for the king and his court. Second, a religious or ceremonial center. The formal feel of the inner passage, the decorative courses, and the tower suggest that public rituals or initiation rites may have taken place here. Third, a combined royal and ritual area, where political power and religious practice reinforced each other. The conical tower provokes the most debate. Some see it as a stylized granary, a symbol of abundance, and the king's role as provider in a cattle and grain-based economy. Others view it as a purely symbolic monument, a visual centerpiece for ceremonies. Without inscriptions, the argument rests on context and comparison. And the enclosure allows for more than one reading. Another question, how did the builders achieve this precision without blueprints or mortar? The answer likely lies in a deep craft tradition. Teams of masons worked from practical templates, refined the courses by eye and habit, and passed down the techniques through generations. The decorative courses show the builders were not just stacking stone, they were composing with it. For a long time, the site's story was obscured by myths. Phoenicians, lost tribes, outsiders. Those claims did not stand up to archaeology. Great Zimbabwe was the work of African builders, almost certainly the ancestors of the Shona people, who harnessed local material, regional trade, and skilled labor to erect something unique for its time and place. And yet, one last fascinating question lingers. Was Great Zimbabwe the culminating achievement of a well-known tradition? Or is it the last visible trace of a much broader architectural culture, whose other great works have vanished from the record? The walls do not speak, but they make a powerful case that there is much more to learn. Amidst the solemn ruins of Great Zimbabwe, where soaring curved stone walls still whisper in the wind like a message from a fallen civilization, our journey opens a new path. Far from the sun-drenched lands of Africa, the road leads us across deserts and mountains to the cradle of humanity, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. There, amidst the clay layers and the ruins of the ancient Sumerian civilization, archaeologists have discovered artifacts that have stunned the world. Small clay figurines with the cold faces of reptiles. Their elongated eyes, emotionless gaze, and non-human form still pose a haunting question. Who or what did the ancients actually depict in this form? The Ubaid Lizard Figurines were first discovered in 1919 during excavations in southern Mesopotamia, which is modern-day Iraq. These excavations, conducted at sites like Tel Al, Ubaid, Ur, and Eridu, were part of British-led archaeological expeditions seeking the earliest phases of Mesopotamian civilization. The Ubaid period, now dated to roughly 5000 to 4000 BC, preceded the rise of the Sumerian city-states and is considered one of the region's foundational cultures. The excavations found the figurines buried alongside the remains of mud, brick buildings, ceremonial structures, and layers of domestic debris. They were often found with pottery finely decorated with geometric designs, agricultural tools, and other small ritual objects. Over the next few decades, more examples were found as excavations continued across southern Mesopotamia, eventually numbering in the dozens. The heads of the figurines, which look strikingly non-human, immediately caught the attention of researchers. While figurines from other ancient cultures often depict women, gods, or generic human figures, these had reptilian faces with elongated snouts, large, almond-shaped eyes, and smooth, almost scaly surfaces. At first, archaeologists speculated they might represent deities or supernatural beings associated with the Ubaid religion. Others thought they could depict actual individuals wearing ritual masks. Whatever the answer, the consistency of their design suggested they were not random artistic experiments, but part of a shared cultural idea. The civilization that produced these figurines is also notable. The Ubaid culture spread across much of southern Mesopotamia and eventually influenced northern Mesopotamia and the Persian Gulf. Its people practiced irrigation agriculture, growing barley and wheat, and herded domestic animals like cattle, sheep, and goats. Settlements often included large, tripartite temples, which are rectangular buildings divided into 3 parallel halls, suggesting an organized religion. They also produced distinctive painted pottery with black or dark brown geometric patterns on a buff, colored ground. Trade links reached far down the Arabian Peninsula, evidenced by imported goods and shared cultural traits. The Ubaid period saw the beginnings of social stratification, larger houses for elites, specialized craft production, and centralized temple administration. And yet, despite this complexity, the Ubaid people left behind no written language, leaving archaeologists to reconstruct their beliefs and social systems entirely from artifacts like the lizard figurines. The figurines vary in size from a few inches to over 20 centimeters and are made of clay, either kiln, fired, or sun-dried. While the bodies have clearly human proportions, the heads do not. The faces are elongated, with tapered snouts and large, unblinking eyes. Some heads are smooth and rounded. Others have ridges or crests running from the brow to the top of the head. Many of the figurines are clothed, indicated by incised lines and patterns. Belts, skirts, and elaborate neck jewelry appear on some, while others are nude. One particularly notable subset depicts the figures holding an infant. In some cases, the infant also has the same reptilian features as the adult, suggesting a narrative or symbolic meaning that we no longer understand. The craftsmanship ranges from simple and stylized to finely detailed, suggesting they were made by different artisans or for different purposes. But their shared features point to a consistent concept. Whether it was mythological figures, ancestral spirits, or costumed participants in rituals. The fact that many were found in or near domestic spaces raises another question. Were these objects household talismans, private devotional items, or symbolically charged toys? Without a written explanation, we can only speculate. But the attention to detail and the recurring motifs suggest they held a significance beyond decoration. The true purpose of the Ubaid Lizard Figurines remains unresolved. Mainstream theories lean toward a religious or symbolic role, perhaps representing deities associated with fertility, protection, or the natural world. Reptiles, particularly snakes, were sometimes linked to creation, rebirth, and the underworld in later Mesopotamian myths. So the reptilian features here may have carried a similar meaning. Some scholars have suggested the figurines might be related to shamanistic practices, with the lizard-like appearance symbolizing transformation or connection to animal spirits. Others think they might represent masks worn during ceremonies, immortalized in clay for ritual or commemorative purposes. Outside of academia, the figurines have fueled more speculative ideas. Ancient astronaut theorists point to their non-human appearance as evidence of extraterrestrial contact, while fringe narratives imagine them as portraits of a vanished reptilian race. These interpretations lack supporting evidence, but persist in popular media because the figures are so visually different from typical prehistoric human depictions. What we do know is this: they were intentional, consistent, and unique to the Ubaid cultural sphere. Whether they were an artistic convention, a symbolic shorthand that everyone in Ubaid society understood, or whether they preserve the outlines of myths, gods, or ideas that vanished long before writing emerged. Until we find more evidence, their smooth clay faces will keep their secrets. Before the first pyramids were built in Egypt, even before the wheel appeared in human history, there were stone monuments rising across the planet. Massive stone slabs, stacked in the shape of doorways, have stood firm for millennia. They are called dolmens, ancient witnesses to an era when humans seemed to possess a lost knowledge. Who built them, and for what purpose? That remains one of humanity's greatest unsolved mysteries. A dolmen is a type of megalithic structure, typically formed by two or more upright stones supporting a large, flat horizontal stone known as a capstone. The result looks something like a stone table, hence the nickname stone tables in some regions. Many dolmens were originally covered by earth or smaller stones to form a burial mound. But this covering has often eroded over time, leaving only the stone skeleton. At first glance, dolmens seem simple, but when one understands that many of these capstones weigh tens or even hundreds of tons, which is heavier than the largest blocks in the Egyptian pyramids, that simplicity becomes a marvel. For most of them were erected during the Neolithic or early Bronze Age, when humans had not yet invented the wheel in many parts of the world. The most famous dolmens include the Pulnabrone Dolmen in Ireland, with its weathered limestone uprights, and the Brownshill Dolmen, where a capstone weighing over 100 tons is perfectly balanced on its supports. In South Korea, the Gangwa Dolmen sites are spread across hillsides and valleys, some with capstones over 7 meters long, forming the densest concentration of megaliths on the planet. What amazes archaeologists is not just the scale, but the method of construction. The ancient builders had no steel, no engines, only stone, wood, and human power. They may have built earthen ramps, using wooden rollers and levers to drag each massive slab from the quarry, transport it for many kilometers, and then raise it with precision to the correct angle. Positioning a capstone weighing tens of tons onto its supports without causing them to collapse required an understanding of mechanics, center of gravity, and balance that many modern engineers still admire. According to archaeological evidence, most dolmens were once covered with earth or small stones, forming burial mounds. Over millennia, that covering has eroded, leaving the bare stone skeleton we see today. In many dolmens, human remains, pottery, stone tools, and jewelry have been found, indicating they were once ritualistic tombs used for the burial of high-status individuals or large family groups. Some dolmens were even opened multiple times, suggesting repeated burials or periodic religious rites. The most widely accepted theory is that dolmens served as burial or ceremonial sites. Excavations have uncovered human remains, pottery, tools, and jewelry in and around many dolmens, indicating they were tombs for important individuals or family groups. Some may also have served as communal burial sites, reopened multiple times to add remains. The layout of dolmens varies, with some forming small chambers that may have been sealed with additional stones, while others were part of larger megalithic complexes. In some regions, alignments with astronomical events, such as the solstices, suggest they may have had a celestial or ritual significance. The careful choice of location, often on hilltops or in prominent positions in the landscape, reinforces the idea that they were meant to be seen from a distance, acting as permanent monuments to the people buried there. What remains unexplained is how so many distant cultures on different continents and separated by oceans built structures of such similar design. There is no evidence of direct contact between Neolithic Ireland and Bronze Age Korea, and yet both created dolmens of strikingly similar form and function. Is this simply a case of convergent evolution, where different societies independently arrived at the same solution for honoring their dead? Or could it hint at older, shared traditions passed down along prehistoric migration routes? The sheer engineering challenge adds to the mystery. These were communities with no metal tools, draft animals, or wheeled transport in many cases. And yet, they could quarry, transport, and precisely place stones weighing tens of tons. The planning and labor organization required implies strong leadership and a social structure capable of mobilizing large groups for a single, monumental goal. And while many dolmens were used as tombs, the symbolic and cultural meaning behind them is harder to pin down. Were they territorial markers, ritual gateways, or representations of lost myths? Until more evidence emerges, the dolmens will remain a testament to human ingenuity and a reminder that even in prehistory, humans found a way to create monuments that would last for millennia. 8 sites, 8 colossal question marks etched in stone and time. 8 silent challenges sent to the 21st century, where humanity believes it has fully understood the past. But when faced with these relics, everything we thought was certain suddenly becomes fragile. Standing before these inexplicable wonders, we realize a cold truth. The chronicle of humanity consists not only of what has been written, but also of the pages that have been torn out. Those torn pages from the chronicle are still scattered around us, under the ground, at the bottom of the sea, in the myths our ancestors whispered for thousands of years. What we have just witnessed is only the tip of a giant iceberg, the remaining fragments of a chapter of history that no one has yet dared to write. Because these 8 mysteries are just the beginning. Out there, the world still holds countless unanswered questions. Lost golden cities in the South American jungle, ancient manuscripts written in a language no one understands, colossal structures lying deep at the bottom of the ocean, and civilizations that seemed to vanish overnight. Our journey of discovery has only just begun. Tell mystery. Which piece of today's 8 stories left you the most unsettled and curious? Which story made you wonder? How much do we truly understand about ourselves in the grand picture of history? And do not forget to subscribe, because in our upcoming journeys, we will venture even further, to the lands where past and legend merge, where every stone still whispers secrets that the modern world is not yet brave enough to hear.